go get you the gavel.
I'm calling this meeting to order. I don't have a gavel.
Use your water bottle.
I'm just knocking. I'm just knocking.
Use the water bottle.
All right, we are officially calling this meeting to order on May 16th, 2017. I know that Richard is going to be coming in late. He's at Bill Schroeder's visitation. So roll call, please.
Commissioner Abraham. Commissioner Holland.
Here.
Commissioner Rhodes.
Here.
Commissioner Wilson.
Here.
Mayor Harless.
Here. And Sarah, will you lead us in the invocation, please?
Dear Lord, thank you for the gift of life and the opportunity to serve the people of our city. Help us to act with character and conviction. Help us to listen with understanding and goodwill. Give us a spirit of service. Help us see the humanity and dignity of those who disagree with us, and to treat all persons with the reverence. We seek a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting, and the ability to work together in harmony, even when there is honest disagreement. Amen.
Thank you. If you'll stay standing and join me in the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to its republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. City Manager, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, we have moved to a consent agenda for the first part of our meetings. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the Board of Commissioners and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. At this time, unless there's anyone who needs to remove anything, the city clerk will read the items recommended for approval.
Okay. Item 1, minutes for the May 9th, 2017 City Commission meeting. Appointments, reappoint Beverly McKinley to the Code Enforcement Board. This term will expire February 26th, 2020. Appoint Rachel King and Jennifer Tritle to the Civic Beautification Board. These terms will expire July 1st, 2021. Appoint Early Fugate to the Civil Service Commission to replace David Sorrells, whose term has expired. This term will expire May 16th, 2020. Reappoint William Robert Johnston to the Paducah-McCracken County Industrial Development Authority. This term will expire March 25th, 2021. Municipal orders, a municipal order of the City of Paducah accepting the grant, approving a grant agreement, and a grant assignment and assumption agreement, and authorizing the mayor to sign all related documents. A municipal order authorizing the application for a 2017 Community Development Block Grant in the amount of $1 million from the Office of the Governor, Department for Local Government for the Floodwall Pump Station No. 2 Rehabilitation Project. And a municipal order accepting grant funds through the Kentucky Heritage Council, State Historic Preservation Office, and National Park Service to be used for professional development training required for the Historic and Architectural Review Commission, and authorizing the mayor to execute said grant agreement and all documents relating to same.
Great. I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
A second.
Any discussion? All right, roll call.
Commissioner Holland?
Yay.
Commissioner Rhodes?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Harless.
Aye. Man, that was fast. Okay, next up, Commissioner Holland has a resolution for us.
Yes. A resolution affirming and accepting the position of the Paducah Veterans Day Committee that participants in the Veterans Day Parade be limited to those that represent the flag of the United States and the veterans of the United States Armed Forces. Whereas in 1996, then Mayor Albert Jones formed the Paducah Veterans for the purpose of recognizing veterans of the United States Armed Forces, and whereas the Veterans Day Parade has run continuously since then under the direction of the City of Paducah Park Service Department, and whereas the Veterans Day Committee has on April 20th of 2017 reaffirmed its statement of purpose for the parade to limit participation to only those groups who represent veterans of the United States Armed Forces under the flag of the United States. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners of the City of Paducah to accept and abide by the resolution of the Veterans Day Committee to limit participation in the Veterans Day Parade to groups or individuals who represent, support, and honor veterans of the United States Armed Forces. This resolution shall be in full force and effect from and after its adoption.
Second. Any discussion? No? All right, City Clerk?
Commissioner Holland,
Aye.
Commissioner Rhodes,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Mayor Harless.
Aye. City Manager?
Thank you. I'd like to ask Public Works and Engineering Director Rick Murphy to come forward and introduce his newest employee.
Mayor Commission, it's my pleasure this evening to introduce to you all Miss Megan Mansfield. She's going to be in our office working as our engineering project manager. I'll let her tell you a few things about her and her background, but we're pleased to have her on our staff and look forward to working with her and her with you. So, Megan.
Well, I am coming from HDR Engineering, where my background is geotechnical engineering by trade, and then prior to that, I was at KYTC, so a little bit of DOT experience as well. From Paducah, born in Paducah, so is my husband, so I've met a lot of familiar faces and a lot of familiar names so far. Looking forward to working here and working with you.
Well, I've heard great things about you, so welcome. Absolutely. We're glad to have you.
I know you're a UK graduate with degree in.
Yes, I graduated University of Kentucky in 2012 with my master's in engineering, and then a bachelor's was there as well.
Great.
Awesome. Thank
Excellent.
you.
Thank
Welcome.
you, guys.
One of Megan's first assignments will be working with the team on the Phase 1 City Hall project. So,
Just to let you know, we don't let, I guess, moss gather on any stones. She was in her boots yesterday on her first day on the job, so we had her out in the field and we were having a good time. So.
Great.
Thank you.
okay. The city's comprehensive plan was adopted in 2007 and is required to be readopted every 5 years. So we're at one of those 5-year points in time. It's our intention to formulate a new comprehensive plan, and efforts underway to begin to identify what we want to do and how we're going to do it. In the meantime, however, the plan that we currently have in place needs to be readopted, which is essentially the goals and objectives of that plan as stated in it. So the recommendation of the planning staff is that we go ahead and readopt the current goals of that plan, which is not to say that they will be readopted in that form through the development of the new plan, but just to say that because we're so close to starting on a whole new comprehensive plan, it would not make sense to dive into these individually or collectively at this time. So I mentioned that by way of information. If there are any strong feelings contrary to that, feel free to speak up.
What's the timeline on the new comprehensive plan?
Well, again, we will readopt the current one, which keeps us compliant with the state, and then embark upon a process to formulate a new one. Obviously, that starts with determining the scope of the plan, and the mayor and I have had preliminary discussions, and I think there are more discussions that need to take place on that, hopefully with other parties. In the meantime, while that's taking place, we'll take a look at what resources are out there to assist us with this. I think this is too large of an endeavor to try to take on at just the staff level. And, there'll be a coming together at some point there. And another issue associated with this, of course, is there'll be the need to find funds for the consulting that we're going to need on this. So we're starting to pull those things together. But in the meantime, we want to continue to be compliant with the state and having a current plan in place. So this would be a step to do that, and really not really do anything other than stay compliant as we begin the process of formulating a new plan.
I would just like to ask that as we move forward, when we adopt, I'm assuming we'll adopt the comprehensive plan at a commission meeting?
Oh,
No?
there'll be a whole process that...
Just to stay in compliance, I mean.
Let me see, I believe that's, the planning commission actually does it.
Okay, so it doesn't come before us?
No, it does not need to unless we were going to change any of those. But if we are going to simply readopt these to stay compliant, then the planning commission would take that action.
Well,
Deadline, by the way, is June 30th.
The what? Okay, I think that because the comprehensive plan was in a part of such of the public discussion with our recent zoning decision, it might be nice to say, like, we're just adopting the sustained compliance. Here's where we're headed as we begin to start on a new plan. So those two pieces of the message go together, so people just don't hear, they adopted the comprehensive plan. That would be my
I
suggestion.
think, and that's what we've attempted to say tonight, so we'll make sure in any additional public outreach that we make sure we get that message out.
Awesome.
All right. I have a couple more things if I find my agenda.
You're the longest part of the meeting tonight.
Oh, I know. I feel special. Budget presentation is next Tuesday. I'd like to begin that at 4 o'clock if that works with everybody. Typically, we do that in the downstairs meeting room so that there's room for everybody that needs to be involved, so we can make that as interactive as we possibly can. The budget books have been in your hands for at least a week now, so it'll be at least 2 weeks that you would have had those before we actually meet and make the presentation, and I think that's longer than it's been in the past, so we're happy to have done that. Meantime, individually, if you have any questions, I know a couple of you have come forward. Any others have any questions that you want answered ahead of time, we're happy to meet with you to do that and try to get you as informed and understood as to what's in there as possible. And lastly, I want to talk a little bit about the property at 432 Broadway. Some of you may have seen some tape on that property today, and the reason for that is there's some bricks falling off the adjoining property. That's being addressed by the property owner, hopefully to our satisfaction, so that shouldn't be there by the end of the week. Just mention that because it's there, and yellow tape does tend to stick out a little bit. I've asked Cheryl Chino to make a little presentation about some planning that's been underway and is starting to come to fruition for redevelopment. But let me first back up just a bit to say that the property at 432 Broadway that has now been demolished, the city has been involved with that, as many of you know, for a number of years, largely associated with the condition of the property and the fact that at some point in time it actually began to represent a public health hazard because of some material dropping off from them and concerns that there could be a major collapse of that building. So we first issued a demolition order for that property back late in 2014. Subsequently came to realize that we were the only responsible party that could or would have the resources to do anything about it. So we actually opened bids for the demolition of that structure, and the City Commission in that process approved taking ownership of it so that we could do it. A grant was written and was successfully awarded, a community development block grant for that demolition, several hundred thousands of dollars, which I remember we all held our breath on that one because of the fact that that's not something that we've been into as a city, and nor had the community development block grant people, as I recall, Cheryl. So it was kind of the first time there, and we weren't sure. But due to Cheryl's excellent grant writing skills and everything else, the state awarded us several $100,000 to complete that. And the project was ultimately closed out in June of 2016, or about a year ago. As part of that application, the city had indicated what our long-term plans were for that site once demolition was complete. And because that property is so narrow, as many of you know, it's only 22 foot wide, the reuse of that property was limited because of the limited space. Infill construction is difficult and wasn't particularly attractive to developers. So in fact, our planning department began to look at it as, okay, is there some kind of a public space that might work there, possibly a public park or a pocket park, if you want to call it that. So in fact, there's been a lot of planning underway and efforting partnerships and design and that sort of thing. And I know there's been some information put out on that, but I don't know that we've talked about it here or much about it. So I want to catch you up with that tonight. So I've asked Cheryl to share some of that with you so you kind of have a better idea of where we're at and where we might be headed. So.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. As Jeff mentioned, this vacant property is a bit of a challenge for infill development because of the narrow frontage on Broadway of just 22 feet. So we, and the planning department, thought the most appropriate use of this site would be some sort of park, pocket park. And what you're looking at is a rendering of the park prepared by Bacon Farmer Workmen. Components of the park include 2 pergolas, planter beds, there's lighting along the long brick wall that we constructed. There are charging stations for mobile devices. I believe there's 3 of those. That's awesome. There's a community art project that I'll speak a little bit more about in just a minute that's going to take place where that large tree is you see on the right there. Also, the Paducah School of Art and Design has prepared a sculpture for the park. Again, I'll talk about that a little bit more. As well as you see 4 little tables there. Those are not going to be tables. Those are going to be benches. We thought those tables might walk off if we had tables. So we've decided on benches would be more suited for the site. The cost estimate is $126,000. That includes all soft costs as well. Planning Department had set aside $35,000 in the FY 2017 budget, and we are asking for an additional $35,000 in the FY 2018 budget. And we have several partnerships, which I'll go into in just a minute, and sponsorships that we are seeking from various organizations in the community. Plans and specifications are approximately 90% complete. We're just waiting on the electrical plans right now. Our estimated time for start and completion, we're looking at sometime late summer or early fall, with about a 90-day construction period. The reason for the long construction period and the time frame is we want those plants to be able to get well established, and hopefully we won't have to replace some of those. So we thought the fall might be a better time to do that. What you're looking at here is a street view. If you were standing at the corner of 5th and Broadway of the concept, you're not seeing the sculpture or the artwork, but that gives you a feel for what it would look like on that street view. And some of the partnerships that I mentioned, first and foremost, Paducah Bank. They have verbally committed to sponsoring the project. They have not indicated to what level yet. We're still working with them, but they have verbally committed to the project. And the school, the Yeiser Art Center and Make Paducah are teaming up to coordinate the community art project I mentioned before. The Yeiser Art Center's gallery will be transformed into a creative studio for 7 weeks, beginning at the end of June through early August. Small squares will be painted, or tiles, will be painted by individuals and gradually assembled to reveal a large-scale mural that will create a pixelated image. When up close, all you see is this mosaic of colorful tiles, but when you stand back at a distance, you see the larger image. The subject of the mural will be a scene that will connect our community with Paducah visitors. We're not exactly sure what that's going to be yet. We've got several ideas we're tossing around, so we're still determining what that imagery is going to look like. The Paducah Board of Realtors has agreed to sponsor the creative art project through their creative placemaking grant for $2,500. And this will go to pay for the materials and installation of the artwork. And as I mentioned before, a sculpture has been made by the Paducah School of Art and Design students. It's done last year, and they're actually storing that for us at their site, and that will be installed on the 5th Street side of the park. Various garden clubs have expressed interest in sponsoring a bench, planter bed, or some similar component of the park. Again, we're working through some of those details with those clubs now, so I can't speak to a lot of what that will look like just yet, but they have expressed quite a bit of interest. As well as the Four Rivers Behavioral Health, they have expressed interest in becoming an Adopt-a-Spot partner. That is kind of where we are right now. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
You know, up at the top where there's like a gap between those 2 buildings,
There's a little lip there.
a little hole there. Is there anything that could be done there with
Well, the problem with
hide that part?
we're concerned about the integrity of that wall. We don't want to do anything that's going to cause any additional water to penetrate between the 2 buildings. That was the purpose of that wall, is to keep that other building, secure it. So we're being very cautious about what we put on that wall. There was some ideas to put some planting, hanging plants and things like that on the wall, and we were just really reluctant to do that because we don't want to jeopardize the integrity and we don't want any water to penetrate that. So when we're doing this art project, it's only a small section of that wall, and we've already expressed some concerns about how that's hung, and we're already investigating how we can hang that on that wall without jeopardizing the integrity of it as well.
So I guess that includes even that top part of it.
Yeah, I think once a lot of that, the planter beds, once a lot of that
Yeah,
grows,
it-
a lot of that, you're not going to see that as well over time. I think it's going to kind of hide that a little bit.
Cheryl, will there be plantings that grow up over the top of the pergola for shade?
We have talked about that, yes, some different types of plants that grow up and come kind of across that pergola. Yes, we've talked about that as well. Mhm.
When, does anybody have a question? When Dan, wait, what was that guy's name? Burden was here on our walking audit, he mentioned that a good way to pull people into the parks, we showed him that spot, were concessions, and I didn't know, well, my first thought is that within 100 feet of a restaurant, could a food truck park near there under our current food truck ordinance? But I wonder if there was any discussion of how to pull people into the park. I actually like the idea of tables, because then you can sit and do stuff, but.
Well, the pergolas are designed, have electrical outlets, they'll be designed for us to have entertainment
Oh, okay.
during various
There we go.
events at this location as well, so
I like that. Okay, so that's the idea, is to pull some people in that way.
it's a multi-use location.
I like
for
the
different
idea.
events.
We have a lot of coffee. I'm not trying to, thanks.
Silent Brigade is just right there too.
Yeah,
so-
that's true. But you couldn't leave Silent Brigade with anything.
No, you can't.
Just a thought.
But there's probably room around there with that 100-foot from a restaurant.
I
or
think
food
so.
trucks
It
down
wouldn't
it.
seem, I don't
Yeah.
think there'd be 100 foot within a restaurant, would they?
I can't think of one.
I can't either.
I want to really give a hats off to the planning staff on this, in part because as we were approaching the inevitability of city ownership and demolition and then having that lot and what might we do with it, your city manager's first inclination was, well, we need to keep it available for perhaps the adjoining property owner for what use they might make of it. In the meantime, the creative juices were flowing in the planning department, and I think they saw clearer than I did the lack of likelihood that that might actually come forward by way of request or demand. So I think the conceptualization, the visioning started and progressed to some degree, and I eventually caught up with it. So I want to say that by way of both admission and kudos to the staff for their initiative and their involvement with this thing. And it really is I think as bad as it is to lose a downtown building, we all hurt from that and everything else. And maybe in part because of how unusual this building is, as narrow as it was and everything else, this is a just wonderful opportunity to create an asset downtown. And even though it's small, it's going to have a real sense of place about it, we think. So it's wonderful.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
On that topic?
No. Okay. Thank you, Cheryl, so much. It's a very entrepreneurial project, it seems like, with all the different players being involved, so.
We always
pretty
try
neat
to
to see
seek
that.
out partnerships whenever possible.
Yep, thanks.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Sandra?
Well, many of us, maybe even all of us, have been this afternoon by the visitation for Bill Schrader, and I just think, we should recognize all the contributions that he's made for our community and our city and the flood walls and everything that he has done for us. He'll be greatly missed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mr. Paducah.
Definitely, Mr. Paducah.
Also, Doc Hyde,
Yes.
wife passed away, and I think those services are later on. I think the visitation started at 5, so there's a lot going on. On a lighter note, I was downtown over the weekend. The Iron Mom was great. Beautiful morning. There were quite a few recreational watercraft vehicles on the river, and I had a conversation with a couple. They had rode down from Calvert City on their jet ski, and they wanted to know if it was okay for them to tie up down at the river. They were asking me, they recognized me. It's like, you're a city commissioner, aren't you? It's like, yeah. Can we tie up down there? It's like, there's no signage down there saying you can't, but we're asking you, can we do it? There's no signage down there to say you can't do it. Well, I don't want it to get stolen. Now, I can't guarantee that either. But the point, well, they had dinner here, right? And they got back on and they left. But the conversation was that we're probably going to see, first I thought they were trying to fuel. And I was telling them it's not ready yet, right? But the conversation was that you probably see more of that type of activity on the river once we get that fueling station set up. Guys, I don't know how much gas it takes to come from Calvert City to Paducah, but those tanks can't be that large, So anyway, that was a good thing, Maybe not so many yachts coming up and down, but maybe more recreational vehicles.
You should anticipate a lot of day trips.
Yeah. That was the whole point. Whole point. Other thing is, I had a few calls from the Pecan Drive folks. I wanted us to just keep in mind the creeks that run along that border behind property. Anything that we can do to help minimize when the rain comes. Anything we can do, don't forget them on that. And I told them that I would bring that up. So that's all I have.
Great. Well, to that point, there's several neighbors in that area who are now on our stormwater advisory group committee.
Advisory
SWAC. SWAC. So hopefully.
SWAC. I got you.
Yeah. So hopefully they're bringing those up, and they had their first meeting last Wednesday. So.
And
yep.
if I might, the first public invitation meeting is being organized now for mid-June. At which time people from all throughout the community will be invited to come forward, and it's being structured such that people can come and talk to people with respect to geographic areas, basins, if you will, and that kind of thing. So we'll get that information out as soon as it's all together, and there'll be, as we've said all along, a lot of good process put to this.
Well, and I saw a public call on Facebook for any photos of flooding issues that people would have. Where should they send those photos?
Send them to our
It
office.
said the engineer.
Send them to Eric Hickman,
Okay.
and preferably if they're date stamped.
Dates are good.
Yeah, date stamps on those would be great because we can tie event with date.
Date stamp photos. Got it.
Okay, so here's what we're asking for. Date stamped photos to Eric Hickman in the Engineering and Public Works Department. Okay.
And any cell phone photo would have a date on it that you can pull off, so it doesn't necessarily have to be stamped on the photo.
Maybe you should give his email
That's
address.
exactly what I'm coming to do. Eric Hickman's email address is ehickman, HICKMAN, @paducahky.gov.
Welcome to the team, Megan. We're going to be giving your email out.
Well, I have a question. Pam, is there a call on Facebook? Is this information on our Facebook page as well? Yeah. Could we put something up on the Facebook page where people can see what we're asking for and where to send it?
Great. Anything else? Anyone? No? You
Oh,
good?
I would like to say something.
Okay.
I would like to say happy birthday to my son Griffin,
Aw.
who turned 8 years old today.
The big 8.
I hope he's watching. Great. Well, and definitely to the Schrader family and to Doc Heidick, we'll be thinking about you all, and that's such a loss for our community. With that being said, I'm going to make a motion for us to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. It's adjourned.
So how old are your boys? 8?